The void of space was silent, but the battlefield was chaos. Bright flashes of laser fire lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Explosions rocked the human fleet, sending shockwaves through the ships. The alien alliance had come in full force, their sleek, silver warships outnumbering the humans 10-1. This was not a battle, it was a massacre waiting to happen. On the bridge of the human flagship, Captain Arlen gripped the edge of his console. His knuckles were white, his face grim. The screens in front of him showed the grim reality: their shields were failing, their weapons were running low, and their fighters were being picked off one by one. The alien commander's voice crackled over the comms, cold and mocking. "Surrender, Deathworlders. You are outmatched. Lay down your arms, and we will grant you a quick death." Arlen's jaw tightened. He turned to his crew, a small group of men and women who had fought alongside him for years. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with fear, but not one of them looked away. They were Deathworlders, born on a planet where survival was a daily battle. They didn't know how to surrender. "We hold the line," Arlen said, his voice steady. "For Earth. For humanity. We don't back down." The crew nodded, their fear hardening into determination. They knew the odds were against them. They knew they might not survive the next hour. But they also knew what was at stake. If they fell, humanity would fall with them. Outside, the alien ships closed in, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. The human fleet was surrounded, their escape routes cut off. Arlen's ship, the Starfire, was the last line of defense. If it fell, the aliens would break through and reach Earth. "Captain," shouted Lieutenant Mira, her voice urgent. "We're detecting a massive energy surge from the alien flagship. They're charging their main weapon." Arlen's heart sank. He had seen what that weapon could do. A single blast could vaporize an entire planet. If it hit the Starfire, there would be nothing left. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "All power to the forward shields." The ship lurched as it tried to dodge the incoming attack. But it was too late. A blinding beam of light shot from the alien flagship, streaking toward the Starfire. The crew braced for impact, their eyes squeezed shut. But the explosion never came. Instead, a strange sound filled the bridge, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Arlen opened his eyes and stared at the viewscreen. The alien weapons beam had stopped mid-flight, frozen in space as if time itself had paused. "What the—" Mira began, but her words were cut off by a sudden flash of light. A massive object appeared out of nowhere, its surface covered in strange, glowing symbols. It was a ship, but unlike anything Arlen had ever seen. It was ancient, its design unlike any human or alien technology. The alien fleet hesitated, their ships pulling back as if unsure what to do. The ancient ship's hum grew louder, and the frozen beam of energy dissolved into nothingness. Then, a voice echoed through the comms, deep and commanding. "This is not your fight. Leave now, or face the consequences." The alien commander laughed, but there was a hint of unease in his voice. "You think one ship can stop us? We are the rulers of the galaxy." The ancient ship didn't respond. Instead, it unleashed a burst of energy so powerful it lit up the entire battlefield. Alien ships were thrown back, their shields failing instantly. The human crew watched in awe as the tide of the battle turned in an instant. But before anyone could react, the ancient ship vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The battlefield fell silent, the alien fleet in disarray. Arlen stared at the empty space where the ship had been, his mind racing. "What just happened?" Mira whispered. Arlen didn't have an answer. But one thing was clear: the galaxy was far bigger and stranger than anyone had imagined. And humanity's fight for survival was far from over. Earth was a beautiful planet, but it was no paradise. Its oceans were vast and unpredictable, its mountains treacherous, and its weather wild and untamed. Predators roamed its forests, diseases lurked in its shadows, and natural disasters struck without warning. For the humans who called it home, survival was a daily battle. They didn't just live on Earth, they fought for every breath, every meal, every moment of safety. It was this relentless struggle that forged humanity into what they were, Deathworlders. The term was coined by the first alien species to visit Earth. They had come expecting to find a primitive, weak civilization. Instead, they found a species that thrived in conditions that would have killed most other life forms. The aliens were horrified, and fascinated. How do they survive? One alien scientist had asked, watching a group of humans climb a sheer cliff face with nothing but ropes and their own strength. Their planet is a death trap. But survival wasn't just about physical strength. It was about adaptability, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will to live. Humans learned to build shelters that could withstand hurricanes, create medicines to cure deadly diseases, and develop weapons to fend off predators. They didn't just survive their world, they conquered it. And then, they looked to the stars. The first human colonies were small and fragile, but they grew quickly. Humans brought their resilience with them, turning barren moons and hostile planets into thriving settlements. But the galaxy was not kind to newcomers. The Alien Alliance, a coalition of powerful species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, saw humans as a threat. They didn't understand how a species from such a dangerous world could be so ambitious, so fearless. They are Deathworlders, the alien leaders said. They do not know their place. But humans did know their place. They knew it was among the stars, and they were willing to fight for it. On the bridge of the Starfire, Captain Arlen sat alone, staring at a holographic image of Earth. The blue and green planet spun slowly, its beauty masking the dangers that had shaped his species. He had grown up in a small village near the edge of a vast desert, where sandstorms could swallow entire towns and water was more precious than gold. He had learned early on that life was fragile, but also that it was worth fighting for. "Captain," a voice called softly. Arlen turned to see Lieutenant Mira standing in the doorway. She was holding a cup of coffee, her face lined with exhaustion. The battle had taken its toll on all of them. "Couldn't sleep?" Arlen asked, taking the coffee with a grateful nod. Mira shook her head. "Too much on my mind. That ship, it wasn't like anything I've ever seen. Who built it? And why did it help us?" Arlen sighed. "I don't know. But I do know this, we're here because of where we come from. Earth made us strong. It made us fighters. And if we're going to survive out here, we need to remember that." Mira sat down beside him, her eyes fixed on the hologram of Earth. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked quietly. "Every day," Arlen admitted. "But I don't regret leaving. We're out here for a reason. We're proving that Deathworlders belong in the stars." As the Starfire drifted through space, its crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage from the battle. The mysterious ship had given them a chance, but they knew the Alien Alliance wouldn't give up so easily. The war was far from over. But the humans were ready. They had faced impossible odds before, on their own planet, in their own homes. They had learned to adapt, to endure, to overcome. And now, they would do the same in the stars. For they were Deathworlders, and they would not be defeated. The Alien Alliance was a marvel of galactic unity, or so they claimed. Comprised of the most advanced species in the galaxy, they had ruled unchallenged for thousands of years. Their technology was unmatched, their fleets unstoppable, and their confidence unshakable. They called themselves the Guardians of Order, but to those who had felt their wrath, they were something else entirely, conquerors. The Alliance was led by the Veiler, a tall, elegant species with shimmering silver skin and eyes like molten gold. They were the architects of the Alliance, the ones who had brought the other species under their rule. To the Veiler, order was everything. They believed in structure, control, and the absolute superiority of their way of life. But humanity didn't fit into their carefully ordered galaxy. They are chaos incarnate, High Commander Zorath of the Veiler said, his voice dripping with disdain. He stood in the Grand Hall of the Alliance's flagship, a massive structure that gleamed like a jewel in the darkness of space. Around him, representatives of the other species nodded in agreement. They come from a world that should have killed them, said a representative of the Krylos, a reptilian species known for their cunning. And yet, they thrive. They spread like a disease, claiming planets that do not belong to them. They are dangerous, added a representative of the Lumine, a species of energy beings who glowed faintly in the dim light of the hall. They do not respect our laws. They do not respect our ways. Zoratha's lips curled into a cold smile. Then we will teach them respect. We will show them the consequences of defying the Alliance. The Alien Alliance's first move was swift and brutal. They targeted human colonies on the outer edges of the galaxy, far from Earth. Their ships descended like shadows, their weapons reducing entire settlements to ash. The humans fought back, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Alliance's message was clear: humanity had no place among the stars. But the humans refused to bow. On the colony world of Eridanus Prime, a group of survivors gathered in the ruins of their city. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground was littered with debris. Among them was a young engineer named Kale, who had lost everything in the attack. His home, his family, his future, all gone. But as he looked around at the faces of his fellow survivors, he felt something stir inside him: defiance. They think they can break us, Kale said, his voice trembling with anger. But they don't know who we are. We're Deathworlders. We don't break. We fight. The survivors nodded, their eyes filled with determination. They had nothing left to lose, and that made them dangerous. Back on the Starfire, Captain Arlen received reports of the attacks. His heart ached for the lives lost, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Alien Alliance would not stop until humanity was wiped out, or until they were forced to stop. We need a plan, Arlen said, addressing his crew. We can't win this war with brute force. We need to outthink them. Outmaneuver them. Lieutenant Mira stepped forward, her eyes sharp with determination. What if we hit them where it hurts? Their pride. They think they're invincible. Let's show them they're not. Arlen nodded slowly. We'll need allies. Other species who've suffered under their rule. If we can unite them, we might stand a chance. But finding allies would not be easy. The Alien Alliance had spent centuries crushing dissent and silencing opposition. Many species were too afraid to fight back. Others had been brainwashed into believing the Alliance's lies. As the Starfire set course for a distant system rumored to harbor resistance fighters, Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But he also knew they had no other choice. The galaxy was at a crossroads, and humanity's survival depended on what happened next. The signal had been faint at first, a whisper in the void of space. But as the Starfire's sensors locked onto it, the whisper grew into a roar. It was unlike anything the crew had ever encountered, a pulse of energy that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of the universe. The source was deep in uncharted territory, far from any known star system. What is it? Lieutenant Mira asked, her eyes fixed on the readings. It's not a distress signal. It's not a communication. It's something else. Captain Arlen leaned over the console, his brow furrowed. Whatever it is, it's powerful. And it's old. These energy signatures, they don't match anything in our database. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The signal was a mystery, but it was also an opportunity. If it led to something that could help them in their fight against the Alien Alliance, it was worth investigating. But they weren't the only ones who had detected it. On the bridge of the alien flagship, High Commander Zorith studied the same signal with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The Veilor's advanced sensors had picked it up shortly after the battle with the humans. To Zorith, it was a potential threat, and a potential weapon. "Send a scout fleet to investigate," he ordered. "If the humans are foolish enough to follow this signal, we will intercept them. And if this signal leads to something valuable, we will claim it for the Alliance." The alien fleet moved swiftly, their sleek ships cutting through the darkness like blades. They were determined to reach the source of the signal before the humans. But the Starfire had a head start, and its crew was equally determined. As the Starfire approached the source of the signal, the crew prepared for the unknown. The ship's engines hummed with power, and its weapons were primed for action. But no one could have prepared for what they found. The signal led them to a massive structure floating in the void, a ship, but unlike any ship they had ever seen. It was ancient, its surface covered in intricate carvings that glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. The design was unlike anything human or alien, a testament to a civilization long forgotten. "It's beautiful," Mira whispered, her voice filled with awe. Arlen nodded, but his expression was grim. "And dangerous. We don't know what's inside. We need to proceed carefully." A small team was assembled to board the ancient ship. Arlen led the way, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. The walls were lined with strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as the team moved deeper into the ship. "This place gives me the creeps," one of the crew members muttered. "It's like it's alive." Arlen didn't respond. He was too focused on the task at hand. The team reached a central chamber, where a massive console pulsed with the same energy as the signal. As Arlen approached, the console activated, projecting a holographic image of a star map. "What is this?" Mira asked, studying the map. "It's not any system I recognize." Before anyone could answer, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the team was thrown off their feet. On the Starfire, the crew scrambled to respond. "Captain, we've got company," a voice shouted over the comms. "The alien fleet, they're here." The alien ships descended on the ancient vessel like vultures, their weapons trained on the Starfire. Zoritha's voice crackled over the comms, cold and triumphant. "You have led us to a great prize, Deathworlders. But it belongs to the Alliance now. Surrender, or be destroyed." Arlen clenched his fists. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but he wasn't ready to give up. "Not yet. We're not surrendering," he said, his voice steady. "But we're not fighting, either. Not yet." He turned to the console, his mind racing. The ancient ship had power that could turn the tide of the war. If they could unlock its secrets, they might stand a chance. But time was running out. The ancient ship's central chamber was alive with energy. The holographic star map flickered and shifted, revealing patterns that seemed almost intentional. Captain Arlen stepped closer to the console, his eyes scanning the symbols. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, yet something about them felt familiar. "It's a message," he said slowly. "Or a warning. I'm not sure which." Lieutenant Mira joined him, her fingers hovering over the console. "If we can decode these symbols, we might be able to understand what this ship is. And why it's here." The team worked quickly, using the Starfire's computers to analyze the symbols. As the data streamed in, a picture began to emerge, a story of a civilization that had once ruled the galaxy. They called themselves the Etherians, and they had been masters of technology and exploration. But their greatness had been their downfall. They were destroyed by their own arrogance, Mira said, reading the translated text. They created weapons so powerful they could tear apart stars. And in the end, they turned those weapons on each other. Arlen's expression darkened. So this ship, it's a relic of their war? More than that, Mira replied. It's a warning. A reminder of what happens when power is left unchecked. The team fell silent, the weight of the discovery settling over them. The Etherians had been the most advanced species in the galaxy, and yet they had destroyed themselves. It was a sobering thought, and a chilling one. Outside, the alien fleet surrounded the ancient ship, their weapons trained on the starfire. High Commander Zoreth watched from the bridge of his flagship, his golden eyes narrowed in suspicion. He had expected the humans to put up a fight, but instead, they were silent. What were they hiding? Prepare to board the ancient vessel, Zoreth ordered. I want to know what the humans have found. A team of Valor soldiers moved swiftly, their sleek armor glinting in the dim light. They entered the ancient ship through a secondary airlock, their weapons at the ready. But as they moved deeper into the ship, they began to feel it, a strange, almost oppressive energy that seemed to press down on them. This place is wrong, one of the soldiers muttered. It's like it doesn't want us here. Zoreth ignored the comment. He was focused on one thing, claiming the ship's technology for the Alliance. But as he reached the central chamber, he stopped cold. The holographic star map was still active, its symbols glowing faintly. And standing in front of it were the humans. You're too late, Arlen said, turning to face Zoreth. We've already unlocked the ship's secrets. Zoreth's lips curled into a sneer. And what secrets are those, Deathworlder? What could this ancient relic possibly offer that the Alliance does not already possess? Arlen stepped aside, revealing the console. See for yourself. Zoreth hesitated, then approached the console. As he studied the symbols, his expression shifted from arrogance to disbelief. The story of the Etherians was clear, and its message was unmistakable. This is impossible, Zoreth said, his voice trembling. The Etherians were a myth. A legend. They were real, Arlen said. And they destroyed themselves. Just like you're destroying the galaxy. Zoreth's eyes flashed with anger. You dare compare the Alliance to these fools? We are not them. We are stronger. Wiser. Are you? Arlen asked, his voice calm but firm. You've spent centuries conquering and oppressing. You've turned the galaxy into a battlefield. How long before you turn on each other? Zoreth didn't respond. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. The weight of the Etherian story was too heavy to ignore. Back on the Starfire, the crew watched the alien fleet through the view screen. The ships were still in position, but their weapons were no longer active. Something had changed. Do you think they'll listen? Mira asked, her voice hopeful. Arlen sighed. I don't know. But we've given them a choice. That's all we can do. The ancient ship hummed softly, its energy fading as the holographic star map disappeared. Its message had been delivered. Now, it was up to the living to decide what to do with it. The Starfire's engines roared to life as the ship pulled away from the ancient vessel. Captain Arlen stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The alien fleet was still there, but their formation had shifted. They were no longer attacking, they were waiting. What's their move? Lieutenant Mira asked, her voice tense. They're unsure, Arlen replied. The Etherian story has shaken them. But they won't stay hesitant for long. We need to act now. The crew worked quickly, using the data they had gathered from the ancient ship to enhance the Starfire's systems. The Etherians' technology was far beyond anything humanity or the Alien Alliance had ever seen, and even a fraction of its power could make a difference. Shields are at 200%, one of the engineers reported. Weapon systems are online and fully charged. Arlen nodded. Good. Let's show them what we can do. The Starfire surged forward, its new systems humming with energy. The alien fleet reacted immediately, their ships moving to intercept. But the humans were ready. Fire at will. Arlen commanded. The Starfire's weapons lit up the darkness, their blasts tearing through the alien ships with devastating precision. The aliens were caught off guard, their shields failing under the onslaught. For the first time, the humans had the upper hand. On the alien flagship, High Commander Zoreth watched in disbelief as his fleet was pushed back. The humans' sudden surge in power was unexpected, and alarming. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his voice rising. "They are primitive. They should not be able to stand against us." One of his advisors stepped forward, her expression grim. "The ancient ship, it must have given them something. A weapon. Or knowledge." Zoratha's fists clenched. "Then we will take it from them. Send in the reserves. I want that ship destroyed." But as the order was given, a murmur spread through the command center. The story of the Etherians had reached the lower ranks, and it was causing unrest. The soldiers had always believed in the Alliance's superiority, but now they were questioning everything. "What if the humans are right?" one of the soldiers whispered. "What if we're heading down the same path as the Etherians?" Zoreth heard the whispers, and they filled him with rage. "Silence," he roared. "We are the Alliance. We do not falter. We do not doubt. We will crush the humans, and we will claim their technology for ourselves." But the damage had been done. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and they were growing. Back on the Starfire, the crew celebrated their victory, but Arlen knew it was only the beginning. The alien alliance was still powerful, and they wouldn't give up so easily. "We've bought ourselves some time," he said, addressing the crew. "But this war isn't over. We need to keep pushing. We need to show the galaxy that there's another way." Mira stepped forward, her eyes shining with determination. "We've got the Etherians' technology. We've got their story. And we've got something the Alliance doesn't have, unity. If we can rally the other species, if we can show them that they don't have to live under the Alliance's rule, we can win this." Arlen nodded. "Then let's get to work." As the Starfire set course for a nearby system rumored to harbor resistance fighters, the alien fleet regrouped. Zoratha's anger burned brighter than ever, but beneath it was something else, fear. The humans had proven themselves to be more than just Deathworlders. They were a force to be reckoned with. And the galaxy was watching. The Starfire drifted silently through space, its hull scarred and battered from the recent battles. The crew moved quietly, their faces drawn with exhaustion. They had won a major victory, but the cost had been high. Too high. In the medical bay, Captain Arlen stood beside a row of beds, each occupied by a wounded crew member. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and the low hum of medical equipment. Lieutenant Mira was among the injured, her arm bandaged and her face pale. "How are you holding up?" Arlen asked, his voice soft. Mira managed a weak smile. "I've been better. But I'll live. That's more than some can say." Arlen's gaze shifted to the far end of the room, where a sheet had been draped over a still form. Another life lost. Another name to add to the growing list of casualties. He clenched his fists, his heart heavy with guilt. "We're fighting for something bigger than ourselves," he said, more to himself than to Mira. "But that doesn't make it any easier." Mira reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. But we're making a difference. The Alliance is starting to crack. We just have to keep pushing." Arlen nodded, but the weight of leadership pressed down on him. Every decision he made, every order he gave, came with consequences. And the consequences were becoming harder to bear. On the alien flagship, High Commander Zoreth faced his own struggles. The Alliance's recent defeats had shaken his confidence, and the whispers of dissent among his ranks were growing louder. He stood in the Grand Hall, addressing the representatives of the allied species, but the atmosphere was tense. "We cannot afford to falter," Zorith said, his voice firm. "The humans are a threat, but they are not invincible. We must remain united." But the representatives were not convinced. The story of the Etherians had spread, and it had struck a chord. The Krylos representative stepped forward, his reptilian eyes narrowed. "You speak of unity, but at what cost?" he asked. "The humans fight for their survival, but what do we fight for? Power? Control? Are we so different from the Etherians?" Zoritha's jaw tightened. "We fight for order. For stability. The galaxy cannot survive without it." "And what if our order is the problem?" the Lumine representative asked, her glowing form flickering with emotion. "What if we are the ones who need to change?" Zoritha's patience snapped. "Enough. We will not be swayed by the words of our enemies. The Alliance will prevail. And any who doubt that will be dealt with accordingly." The hall fell silent, but the tension remained. The cracks in the Alliance were widening, and Zorith knew it was only a matter of time before they became fractures. Back on the Starfire, Arlen received a transmission from a nearby system. The Resistance fighters they had been searching for had finally made contact. The message was brief but hopeful: they were ready to join the fight. "This is it," Arlen said, addressing the crew. "We've got allies now. Real allies. But this isn't just about winning the war. It's about proving that there's another way. A better way." The crew nodded, their determination renewed. But Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. The Alien Alliance was desperate, and desperate enemies were the most dangerous. As the Starfire set course for the Resistance stronghold, Arlen stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but one thing was certain: the fight for its future was far from over. The Resistance stronghold was a bustling hive of activity. Ships from a dozen different species filled the docking bays, their crews working together to prepare for the coming battle. It was an unprecedented sight, a coalition of species united against a common enemy. For Captain Arlen, it was a glimmer of hope in the darkness. "This is what the galaxy should be," he said, watching as a group of Krylos engineers helped repair a damaged human fighter. Not divided. Not ruled by fear. But working together. Lieutenant Mira stood beside him, her arms still bandaged but her spirit unbroken. "It's not going to be easy," she said. "The Alliance won't go down without a fight." Arlen nodded. "I know. But we've got something they don't. We've got each other." The plan was simple but daring. The Coalition would launch a coordinated attack on the Alliance's Central Command Hub, a massive space station that served as the heart of their operations. If they could take it down, the Alliance would crumble. But the station was heavily fortified, and the Alliance's fleet was still formidable. As the Coalition forces gathered, Arlen addressed the leaders of the various species. "This is it," he said. "The moment we've been fighting for. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for the future of the galaxy. Let's make it count." The battle began with a deafening roar as the Coalition fleet surged forward, their ships cutting through the darkness like a swarm of fireflies. The Alliance's forces were waiting, their weapons blazing. The void of space became a chaotic storm of light and sound, with ships exploding and debris scattering in every direction. On the bridge of the Starfire, Arlen barked orders as the ship weaved through the chaos. "Focus fire on their command ships. We need to break their formation." The Starfire's weapons lit up, their blasts tearing through the enemy's defenses. But the Alliance was relentless, their ships closing in from all sides. The Coalition fought bravely, but the odds were against them. "We're taking heavy damage," Mira shouted, her voice barely audible over the alarms. "We can't keep this up much longer." Arlen clenched his fists. "We don't have a choice. We have to push through." On the Alliance's Central Command Hub, High Commander Zorith watched the battle with growing desperation. The Coalition's attack had caught him off guard, and the station's defenses were being pushed to their limits. But he refused to admit defeat. "Send in the reserves," he ordered. "I want every ship, every weapon, focused on the humans. They are the key to this rebellion. Crush them, and the rest will fall." But even as the order was given, Zorith felt a pang of doubt. The Coalition's unity was something he had never seen before. It was a force that no amount of firepower could easily destroy. Back on the Starfire, Arlen received a transmission from one of the Coalition ships. It was the Krylos commander, his reptilian face grim but determined. "We've found a weakness in the station's defenses," he said. "But we'll need to get close." "Too close." Arlen didn't hesitate. "Do it. We'll cover you." The Krylos ship surged forward, its engines blazing as it dodged enemy fire. The Starfire followed, its weapons providing cover. But the Alliance was relentless, their attacks growing more intense. "We're not going to make it," Mira shouted as the ship shook violently. "We have to," Arlen replied, his voice filled with determination. "For the galaxy." The Krylos ship reached the station, its weapons locking onto a critical weak point. With a final burst of energy, it fired, its blasts tearing through the station's hull. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. The Alliance's command hub was crippled, its systems failing. Without their central command, the Alliance's forces began to falter. The Coalition pressed their advantage, their ships surging forward with renewed vigor. On the station, Zorith stumbled as the lights flickered and died. He stared out at the battlefield, his golden eyes filled with despair. The Alliance was falling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. As the battle raged on, the Coalition's victory became inevitable. The Alliance's ships began to retreat, their formations breaking apart. The galaxy was changing, and there was no going back. On the Starfire, Arlen watched as the last of the enemy ships vanished into the darkness. The crew cheered, their voices filled with relief and triumph. But Arlen's thoughts were elsewhere. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "The real work starts now." The battlefield was quiet now, the echoes of war replaced by an eerie stillness. The Coalition fleet drifted among the wreckage, their ships battered but victorious. The Alien Alliance's Central Command Hub was a smoldering ruin, its once proud structure now a symbol of defeat. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was free from the Alliance's grip. On the bridge of the Starfire, Captain Arlen stood with his crew, their faces weary but filled with relief. The war was over, but the weight of what they had accomplished was just beginning to sink in. "We did it," Lieutenant Mira said, her voice soft but filled with pride. "We actually did it." Arlen nodded, his gaze fixed on the view screen. "This isn't just our victory. It belongs to everyone who fought for a better future. We've proven that unity is stronger than division. That hope is stronger than fear." The crew exchanged smiles, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. But Arlen knew the real challenge was just beginning. The Coalition leaders gathered on a neutral world, their ships filling the skies above. Representatives from every species stood side by side, their differences set aside in the spirit of cooperation. It was a historic moment, one that would be remembered for generations. Arlen stood before the assembly, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We've fought for this moment. We've sacrificed for it. But this is not the end. It's the beginning. The galaxy is ours to rebuild, and we must do it together. Not as separate species, but as one. The leaders nodded, their expressions solemn but hopeful. The story of the Etherians had taught them a valuable lesson: power without wisdom leads to destruction. They were determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. On the surface of the neutral world, a memorial was erected to honor those who had fallen in the war. It was a simple structure, but its message was profound. Etched into its surface were the words, "In unity, we find strength. In hope, we find peace." Arlen stood before the memorial, his heart heavy with the weight of all they had lost. But he also felt a sense of pride. They had fought for something greater than themselves, and they had succeeded. Mira joined him, her arm no longer bandaged but her spirit forever changed. "What now?" she asked. "Now," Arlen said, "we build. We learn. We grow. The galaxy is ours to shape, and we owe it to those who came before us to make it a better place." As the coalition began the work of rebuilding, the Starfire set course for Earth. The crew was eager to return home, to see the planet that had shaped them into who they were. But they knew their journey was far from over. On the bridge, Arlen stood with Mira, watching as the stars streaked past. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but for the first time, it felt like a place of possibility. "We've come a long way," Mira said, her voice filled with wonder. "And we've got a long way to go," Arlen replied. "But we'll face it together. That's what Deathworlders do." The Starfire disappeared into the void, its crew ready for whatever lay ahead. The galaxy was changing, and they were at the heart of it.